Hello everybody, it's me, Riffraff Hornhelm, and I'm back again with another presentation from the Dwarven Vault, and today we have a monster review. And today we're going to bring you another creature from the Fiend Folio. Today we're going to talk about the SVART. The SVART. That's a mouthful. XVART, I mean, really? It wasn't bad enough that the guys at TSR went out of their way to come out with some really bizarre names, but then we get them from Europe too. Really? Thanks, guys. Now, like I said, the SVART is from the original Fiend Folio, which was designed for use with what's typically referred to as 1E or first edition rules that go along with the original book offerings for the rules with Dungeons & Dragons. So the original Monster Manual, Player's Guide, and Dungeon Master's Guide. And the SVART is, once again, from the Fiend Folio and has a more European heritage. And the Fiend Folio is definitely worth your time. Has some really cool and bizarre stuff, most of which has gone on to become, canon within Dungeons & Dragons. And the SVART is one of these. Still exists today in 5e. And it's a very peculiar creature. They have bright blue skin and orange eyes. I mean, makes me, it gives me an Oompa-Loompa type vibe. But, hey, it's different, that's for sure. They are a 1/-1 hit dice creature. So whenever you roll for your 1 to 8, you subtract 1 point from that, and that final result is the amount of hit points that a SVART would have. They're chaotic evil. They have a armor class of 7, so not particularly good on that side. The way it's described in the book, they're typically dressed in a doublet. Oddly specific. But then again, same with the bright blue skin and the orange eyes. Not that this hasn't morphed a bit over time, but this is the original version as first introduced to Dungeons & Dragons. So like I said, evil. And they're shorter than man size. They're only about 3 feet tall. And average intelligence. Nothing special. Now, these are underground dwellers, so you might expect us dwarves to know something about it. Yeah, a little. Don't want to say that these have never been run into, but they're not common. But in addition to living in underground passageways, they also, or passages I should say, deep underground, they also sometimes are found in very deep, dark places in a forest, a dense forest of some kind. And like I said, us dwarves have run across them before. They're evil. They tend to live in groups, but not necessarily huge groups. And of course, they're always, like many evil creatures, looking for opportunities for mischief. One of the things they absolutely delight in doing is capturing, torturing, or ransoming prisoners. So they might sneak up on a group in the middle of the night and drag someone away, or take the last person in line, or something like that. And of course, that makes them something to be aware of if you know they're in, they live in this area or something of that nature. They're not likely to be your friend. They, speak their own language. They don't get along well with a lot of the other underground dwellers, especially kobolds. Not big fans of goblins either. They're somewhere in between if you think of them from both a stature and status perspective. Now, of course, because they fall in stature that's similar to, between a kobold and a goblin, they also speak both tongues. Like I said, they're more likely to get into it with the kobolds, sometimes with the goblins, but they can work better with goblins than they can with kobolds. They're an interesting additional potential underground adversaries for your party, but they aren't very strong. And like I said, us dwarves, if we ever run into these guys, well, how could you forget it if you did? They're very striking looking. And, we've had a few experiences with them. It didn't end well for them. Once again, these are, 1-1 hit dice. Yeah, they're something we can handle. And we don't run into them in the size of groups that you do, things like orcs or, as per an earlier video, bullywugs or goblins or anything like that. So you don't tend to run into these very often. As a dwarf, a couple of times that I've heard about it, usually they're pretty easy to scare away because they don't have a lot that can support them on that side. And, anytime you can get into a battle with something where the kobolds help you, well, that kind of says it all right there. Now, of course, in the gaming world, it doesn't necessarily work out that way. And as XVART, I mean, this is a weird looking creature and not all that powerful. As per the original version that was released. Now, like many creatures out here, this one is morphed over time, but this is the original one, and they're pretty bland. Other than their appearance, they're not as capable as you would hope. I guess, no special magic resistance, no special abilities, etc., etc. Just look weird and short. So, in talking to the greater Hornhelm community, we had to ask them about, well, what about this XVART? What do you think? And dungeon masters, especially ones who followed these over time, thought they were pretty useful creatures. It gave you something very different to turn to underground that was an evil creature and very striking, and some of the changes that have made with this creature over time have made them a little bit more interesting. So, in talking to them, they said, hey, this is definitely one of the better extremely low-level creatures. They gave it a 1.5 to 2. Personal opinion, I think they were overly generous. I would have stayed at 1.5. But, hey, it's up to everybody what they decide, and we just take the average. In talking to the players about this one, not that many players had run across this, and the ones that had ranked this right in that same range. They were talking about 1 to 2. Most of them saying it was closer to a 1. Can't really disagree. As startling and as striking as this creature is from a look standpoint, from a capability standpoint, not much, but it gives you an awful lot of freedom as a dungeon master if you want to be able to morph this into something that's more suitable for your campaign to, well, make the lives of your adventurers interesting. So, that, my friends, is the XVART. We hope you found today's presentation to be interesting, educational, amusing, all that kind of good stuff. If you did, please be so kind as to leave us a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't. By all means, share with your friends, drop us a comment, but most of all, please come back and see us again soon. We thank you so much for your very kind support. Take care, everyone, and remember, dwarves rock!